Disclaimer: this is a fictional dramatization created for artistic, emotional, and educational storytelling purposes. All characters and events are entirely fictional and created using AI tools. No impersonation, misrepresentation, or harm is intended. The content contains scenes of danger involving child characters. However, no real persons or minors were involved in its production. Grace's Love Stories produces scripted, AI-generated stories that promote, entertain, inspire kindness, and emotional connection. We respect our viewers and strictly adhere to YouTube's policies.
The cold is a memory. It lives in the bones of her left leg, a dull ache that sharpens with every drop in temperature, a phantom chill that has nothing to do with the weather. It is the memory of lying in a ravine for 17 hours, the November frost seeping into her skin, her femur snapped clean in two. It is the memory of his face, Mark's face, looking down at her, the casual calculation in his eyes before he turned and walked away, leaving the wreckage of the car and the wreckage of her to be consumed by the encroaching wilderness. He'd told the police she'd been unstable, that she'd wandered off after an argument. A flighty, emotional woman. They'd believed him. Of course they had. So Alara had retreated. This cabin, inherited from a grandfather she barely knew, is her fortress. Tucked deep within 100 acres of unforgiving pine and birch, it is a hermitage built of cedar logs and silence. The nearest town is a 40-minute drive down a road that is more suggestion than reality. Perfect. Here, the only betrayal comes from the snap of a frozen branch, the only judgment from the obsidian stare of a raven. Snow begins to fall. Thick, wet flakes that cling to the window panes like grasping hands. The ache in her leg intensifies, a familiar companion on nights like this. She presses a hand to her thigh, the gesture absent-minded, a prayer to a god she no longer believes in. The silence of the cabin is absolute. It's a silence she has cultivated, a thick blanket she wraps around herself. But tonight, it feels thin. Tonight, the 3rd anniversary of her rebirth in ice and agony, the silence is starting to fray at the edges. A sound, not the groan of the house settling or the sigh of the wind. A scratching, frantic, desperate, at her front door. Her heart seizes, a cold fist clenching in her chest. No one comes here. No one. The delivery driver leaves packages at the end of the dirt track. The one nosy neighbor she'd had moved away last spring. Scratch, scratch, scrape. It's low to the ground. An animal, a bear, waking from its torpor, a mountain lion. Her mind cycles through a Rolodex of wilderness threats, each more terrifying than the last. Then a new sound joins the scratching. A high, thin whine. A sound of pure misery that cuts through her fear like a shard of glass. It's a sound she understands. The sound of being small, and cold, and hopeless. Against every screaming instinct, Alara limps to the door. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the deadbolt. She peers through the thick, distorted glass of the peephole. Darkness, a mass of it, something huge and black pressed right up against the wood. She cracks the door open. Just a sliver. The security chain holding fast. The smell hits her first. Wet fur, damp earth, and the coppery tang of blood. Her breath catches. Collapsed on her porch, half buried in the accumulating snow, is a wolf. But it's bigger than any wolf she's ever seen in books or documentaries. Colossal, a creature of myth. Its fur the color of a starless midnight. Its chest rises and falls in shallow, ragged bursts. A dark, ugly stain is spreading across its flank, melting the snow beneath it into a slush of crimson and white. And huddled against its massive, still form, shivering so hard its small body seems to vibrate, is a pup. Its tiny whines are the sound that pierced her solitude. It looks up, its eyes glowing a faint, spectral gold in the gloom, and lets out another pathetic cry. Her mind screams, "Close the door. Close the door now. This is the wild. This is nature, red in tooth and claw." Her grandfather's voice echoes in her head, a stern but loving warning about the unforgiving laws of the forest. You don't interfere. You don't bring the wild inside, especially not a predator, especially not one that is clearly dying. And yet, she sees the labored breath of the great wolf. She sees the desperate, pleading eyes of the pup. And she sees herself, lying in the ravine. The world a blur of white snow and black sky, praying for a light, for a voice, for a hand, for anyone to stop and see her. Just see her. No one did. The world saw a problem, an inconvenience, and it looked away. Mark looked away. The search parties, with their half-hearted sweeps, looked away. She looks at the two creatures on her porch, one dying, one soon to be orphaned, abandoned by their pack, attacked by hunters. It doesn't matter. They are alone and in pain. A wave of something hot and fierce rises in her throat, choking her. It's not pity, it's rage, a defiant, burning rage against the cold indifference of the world. She will not be like them. She will not look away. The decision settles in her bones, a weight as heavy and solid as the iron skillet on her stove. It terrifies her. It feels like stepping off a cliff in the dark. But it also feels, for the first time in 3 years, like breathing. "Okay," she whispers to the unhearing creatures, the word a plume of white in the freezing air. "Okay." The chain comes off. The deadbolt slides back with a deafening thud. She opens the door. The sheer scale of the task is paralyzing. The wolf is immense, easily over 200 pounds of dense muscle and bone, a dead weight. She can't just drag him. Her leg throbs in protest at the very thought. The shed. Her grandfather had been a man of practicalities. Buried under a pile of rakes and old tarps is a heavy-duty sled, the kind used for hauling firewood or, she supposes, gargantuan wounded wolves. Getting him onto it is a clumsy, grunting ordeal. She slips in the blood snow, her hands screaming from the cold as she shoves and pulls. The wolf lets out a low groan of pain, and the sound tightens a knot in her stomach. The pup watches her every move, a tiny, silent sentinel, its golden eyes wide with a terror that mirrors her own. Finally, he's on. She hauls, her bad leg dragging, every muscle straining. The runners of the sled cut twin tracks in the fresh snow, a path marking the precise moment her life veered into madness. Inside, the warmth of the cabin is a shock. The air immediately fills with the primal scents she'd smelled at the door. She maneuvers the sled onto a large, waterproof tarp she'd laid before the hearth. The fire crackles, casting, flickering, dancing shadows across the wolf's dark coat. The pup follows, sticking so close to the large wolf's side it's almost comical. It nudges its nose into the motionless flank and whines, a soft, heartbroken sound. Alara kneels. Her hands, still trembling, hover over the wound. Up close, it's worse. A deep, vicious tear in the muscle of his hind leg and flank. The edges are ragged, inflamed. It doesn't look like teeth or claws made this. It looks metallic, like he was caught in something. A bear trap? The thought sends a fresh wave of nausea through her. Her grandfather's first aid kit is more of a field surgery station. He'd been a medic in a war she could never remember the name of. Saline solution, antiseptic wipes, sterile gauze, butterfly closures. She has it all. "This is going to hurt," she murmurs, her voice raspy. She doesn't know why she's talking to him, maybe to soothe herself. "I'm sorry." She expects a snarl, a snap of teeth, a lunge. She gets nothing. The wolf remains unnervingly still as she begins to clean the wound. His head is up, though. He's watching her. His eyes are not the flat, reactive eyes of an animal in pain. They are deep, intelligent. Shockingly so. They are the color of whiskey in a dark room, full of a lucid, weighing intensity. He tracks her every movement, every hesitation of her hand. It's unnerving. It feels less like tending to an animal and more like performing a procedure under the gaze of a skeptical surgeon. When she's done, the gash is clean and packed with gauze, the edges pulled together as best she can. His breathing seems a little less ragged. Or maybe she's just hoping it is. She sinks back on her heels, exhausted. The adrenaline drains away, leaving behind a hollow, quivering weakness. What have I done? She has invited a monster into her home. Her sanctuary, her one safe place in the entire world, is now occupied by a force of nature she cannot possibly comprehend or control. The door, which she has just bolted and chained again, feels flimsy. The walls of her cabin feel like paper. The threshold has been crossed. Her self-imposed isolation, the careful, sterile bubble she built around her shattered life, has just been breached, not by a man, but by something far older, far wilder. The pup, seeming to sense her distress, lets out a small sneeze. The sound is so mundane, so absurdly normal, that a choked laugh escapes her lips. It's a rusty, unused sound. She looks at the giant, sleeping predator by her fire, the tiny fluff ball of a wolf curled beside him, and the bloody rags in her hand. This is insane. She is insane. And for the first time in a very long time, she doesn't feel entirely alone. The days fall into a strange, new rhythm, dictated by the needs of her unlikely houseguests. Morning. Wake, check the wolf's wound, put out fresh water and a bowl of the expensive canned stew she usually saves for emergencies. The pup, which she has started to call Pip in the privacy of her own head, devours his portion with gusto. The large wolf, her silent shadow, eats slowly, deliberately, his amber eyes never leaving her face. Afternoon, read by the fire, acutely aware of the two breathing bodies only feet away. The silence is different now. It's not empty. It's filled with a quiet, watchful presence. She finds herself measuring her movements, softening her footsteps, as if not to disturb a sleeping king. Evening. Change the dressing on the wound. This becomes their ritual. She murmurs to him as she works, her voice low. At first, it's just practical updates. This looks a little better today, less angry. I'm almost out of the good gauze. But the wolf is a fantastic listener. He never interrupts. He never offers platitudes. He just absorbs her words. His steady, intelligent gaze is a constant invitation. And so, the words start to spill out. Words she hasn't spoken aloud to anyone. Words she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten they were there. "He left me," she whispers one evening, her fingers carefully dabbing antiseptic along the edge of the healing gash. The firelight makes his fur gleam like polished jet. "Mark my fiancé. He just left me to die." The wolf's ear twitches, a subtle movement, but she sees it. He said he was going for help. I believed him. For hours, I believed him. I kept thinking, he'll be back any second. He'll bring help. She lets out a bitter, humorless laugh. He was already with someone else, had been for months. The accident was an inconvenience. I was an inconvenience. She tells him about the cold, about the endless, aching cold that sunk into her marrow, about the sound of her own teeth chattering until her jaw ached too much to move, about the indignity of the police interviews, the subtle victim blaming, the pitying looks that felt like stones being thrown at her. They made me feel like I was the crazy one, for trusting him, for loving him, She finishes with the bandage and leans back, her throat tight. I just wanted someone to see me, to really see what happened and not look away. The great wolf, her shadow, shifts his weight. He lets out a low, soft rumble from deep in his chest. It's not a growl. It's something else. A sound of acknowledgement, of comfort. A single tear escapes her eye and rolls down her cheek. She dashes it away, angry at her own weakness. But as she looks at him, this impossible creature lying on her floor, she feels a strange sense of peace settle over her. He doesn't look away. He has never looked away. The wound is healing at a rate that defies all logic. A gash that deep on an animal in the wild should have been a death sentence. Infection alone would have taken him. But under her care, with her simple antiseptics and gauze, the angry red flesh has calmed. The edges are pulling together, knitting new, pink skin with an unnatural speed. What should have taken a month is happening in a matter of days. She tries to rationalize it. Wolves are resilient. His constitution must be incredible. She is a good nurse. But a seed of unease, of wonder, has taken root. One afternoon, she's making tea, her mind wandering. Her grip on the honey jar is slick. It slips from her fingers, arcing through the air towards the unforgiving slate of the hearth. She flinches, anticipating the shatter. It never comes. A blur of black, a movement so fast it's little more than a suggestion. The big wolf, who had been dozing, is suddenly there. His head darts out, and he nudges the falling jar with the side of his nose, a movement of impossible precision and delicacy. The jar, its momentum broken, doesn't shatter. It just rolls harmlessly onto the rug. Alara stares, her heart hammering against her ribs. He lays his head back down on his paws as if nothing has happened. His eyes are closed, but she knows he's not asleep. How? She whispers, the word dissolving in the quiet room. She must have imagined the speed. It was a fluke, a lucky coincidence. She tells herself this over and over, but the image is seared into her brain. The impossible quickness, the intelligent, deliberate action. The fear she'd felt on that first night has mostly evaporated, replaced by a strange and unfamiliar emotion, a sense of safety. It makes no sense. She, a woman shattered by a man's betrayal, feels more secure with a 200-pound predator in her living room than she ever did in her locked apartment in the city. She sleeps more soundly. The nightmares that used to plague her, filled with the screech of metal and the feeling of falling, have receded. One night, however, they return, and she's back in the ravine. The cold is a living thing, crawling over her. Mark's face looms above her, his mouth moving, but the words are gone, replaced by the howling of the wind. The pain in her leg is a white-hot scream. She wakes up with a choked cry, sitting bolt upright in bed, her body slick with sweat. The cabin is dark. The fire burned down to glowing embers. A wet, cold nose nudges her hand where it hangs over the side of the bed. She gasps, her heart leaping into her throat before she realizes. Shadow. He's standing beside her bed, his massive head level with her mattress. He lets out that same low, comforting rumble she'd heard before. It's a sound that seems to vibrate right through her, calming the frantic tremor in her limbs. He is not a threat. He is a comfort. Without thinking, her trembling hand reaches out. She hesitates for a fraction of a second, then plunges her fingers into the thick, coarse fur of his ruff. The contact is electric. A jolt of pure, undiluted warmth radiates from him, chasing away the phantom chill of the nightmare. His fur is surprisingly soft beneath the guard hairs. The solid, living heat of him is an anchor in the darkness. She keeps her hand there, her fingers kneading gently into his fur. He leans into her touch, a silent acceptance. This is the first time she has touched him for any reason other than medical necessity. It's the first time she has reached for him, and he has reached back. In the quiet darkness of the cabin, with her hand resting on the head of a giant wolf, Elara feels a connection deeper and more real than any she has ever known. It is a bond forged in silence, in shared pain, and in the radical, terrifying act of letting someone in. The knock on the door is a violation. It's not the frantic scratching of a wounded animal, but the hard, impatient rap of a human fist. 3 sharp knocks that shatter the peaceful morning quiet. Pip, the pup, lets out a startled yip and scurries behind Shadow's massive form. Shadow himself rises to his feet in one fluid, silent motion. The air in the cabin crackles, suddenly charged with tension. His posture has changed. He is no longer a patient. He is a guardian. A low, almost subsonic growl rumbles in his chest. Elara's blood runs cold. She knows that knock. She knows the arrogant impatience behind it. Her whole body starts to tremble. No, it can't be. She limps to the window, peering through the edge of the curtain. A rental car, caked in mud, is parked where her own truck should be, and standing on her porch, looking irritated and out of place in his expensive city coat, is Mark. The air leaves her lungs in a painful rush. It's like seeing a ghost she'd spent 3 years trying to exorcise. "Elara, I know you're in there." His voice is muffled by the thick wood, but it's just as she remembers, I-10 condescending. "Don't be childish. Open the door. We need to talk." Already talk? What could they possibly have to talk about? Her heart hammers a frantic, terrified rhythm against her ribs. How did he find her? Why is he here? The wolf shadow moves to stand beside her. He doesn't look at her, but she feels his presence like a solid wall at her back. The low growl continues. A steady, menacing hum that vibrates through the floorboards. "Go away, Mark." Her voice is a pathetic squeak. She clears her throat, tries again. "Leave me alone." "Don't be ridiculous," he scoffs. "I drove all the way out to this hellhole. You owe me 5 minutes." He tries the doorknob. It's locked, bolted. He jiggles it angrily. "Elara, for God's sake, I heard you inherited this dump. I just want to talk about what's fair." Money, of course. His new life must have fallen apart. And he'd come sniffing around for scraps. The sheer audacity of it steals her breath. He raises his fist and pounds on the door again, harder this time. "Open this damn door." That's when the growl changes. It's no longer a low warning. It explodes into a full-throated, terrifying snarl that echoes in the small cabin like a thunderclap. Shadow moves, placing his body squarely between Elara and the door. The fur on his back stands on end, making him look even larger, more monstrous. His lips peel back from his teeth, revealing long, white daggers designed for tearing flesh. He is no longer a silent companion. He is a primal force of fury. Mark must hear it, because the pounding stops. "What the hell was that? You got a dog in there?" Elara doesn't answer. She's frozen, staring at the terrifying display of protective rage. A part of her is horrified, but a much larger, much more powerful part of her feels a surge of something she hasn't felt in years, protected. The door suddenly shudders in its frame. He's throwing his shoulder against it, once, twice. The old wood groans in protest. On the third impact, the lock splinters. The door flies open. Mark stumbles into the room, his face red with exertion and anger. "See? Was that so hard?" He stops. His eyes go wide. His jaw hangs slack. He's staring at Shadow. The sight of the giant black wolf, poised to attack, seems to short-circuit his brain. All the color drains from his face. He takes a clumsy step back, his bravado vanishing like smoke. "What? What the hell is that?" he stammers. Shadow takes a slow, deliberate step forward. Then another. He doesn't bark, he doesn't lunge. He simply advances, a silent, inexorable promise of violence. Mark, the bully, the confident aggressor, completely unravels. Fear, pure and primal, contorts his features. He fumbles inside his coat, his hands shaking. He pulls out a gun, a small, silver handgun that looks like a toy in the face of the creature before him. "Get back!" he shrieks, his voice cracking. "Get back, you monster!" Time seems to slow down. Alara sees it all with a horrifying clarity. Mark's trembling hand, his wild, terrified eyes, the way he aims the gun, not with any skill, but with pure panic. The shot is meant for the wolf, but Alara moves. She doesn't think. She doesn't plan. Her body reacts on an instinct she didn't know she possessed, an instinct to protect the protector. She throws herself forward, putting her own body between Mark and Shadow. A searing, white-hot pain explodes in her left arm. It's a shocking, brutal agony that makes her cry out. The gunshot is deafening in the enclosed space. The smell of cordite fills the air. But the bullet isn't the only thing Mark's wild shot hits. It must have pierced the small propane tank for the grill she keeps just outside the door. The world erupts in a concussive blast of heat and sound. The force of the explosion throws her sideways, slamming her head against the floor. Stars burst behind her eyes. Through the ringing in her ears, she hears Mark scream as he scrambles away, fleeing the chaos he created. And the last thing she sees before the darkness rushes in is Shadow. He's been hit. A piece of shrapnel from the exploding tank is embedded in his side, a much more grievous wound than the first. He stumbles, his great body swaying. Even through the haze of pain and disorientation, Alara crawls towards him. Her own blood from her arm is dripping onto the floorboards, mingling with his. She reaches him, drapes her body over his head and shoulders, shielding him from the small bits of debris still raining down from the porch roof. "No," she chokes out, pressing her hand against his new wound, the warm, sticky blood soaking her fingers. "Don't you die on me. Please, don't leave me." It is the ultimate reversal. She, the abandoned, has become the shield. She, the broken, is protecting the strong. In the wreckage of her cabin, bleeding together on the floor, she feels a strange warmth spread from where their blood is mixing on the wood. A soft golden light begins to bloom at the edges of her vision. The sharp pain in her arm dulls to a faint, pleasant tingle. The world shimmers. The great weight of the wolf beside her seems to shift, to change. Through her darkening vision, she sees something impossible. The wolf's form contracts. Bones crack and reform with sickening, audible snaps. Fur recedes into skin. The shape of him elongates, broadens. Where the giant wolf lay bleeding, a man now lies. He is naked, his body a landscape of corded muscle and old scars. His shoulders are impossibly broad, his hair as black as the wolf's fur. The same piece of twisted metal is lodged in his side, blood flowing freely from the wound. He turns his head, and his Aisha's amber, intelligent, whiskey-colored eyes meet hers. They are filled with agony and shock and something else, something that looks like recognition. Her last conscious thought is not of the pain, or the explosion, or the impossible transformation. It is of his face, a stranger's face that she feels she has known her entire life. Then the darkness takes her completely. Consciousness returns in fragments. The scent of pine needles and wood smoke. The feeling of soft, worn cotton against her skin. The distant sound of a crackling fire. How it's all wrong! Her cabin smelled of cedar and her own loneliness. The sheets on her bed were threadbare linen. Her fire was dead. Alara's eyes flutter open. She's not in her cabin. She's in a room that is both rustic and impeccably clean. The walls are rough-hewn timber. The ceiling vaulted high above her. A thick, hand-woven blanket covers her. Sunlight streams through a large, clean window. illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Her head throbs with a dull ache. She lifts a hand to touch it and sees her arm. It's clean, bandaged neatly from wrist to elbow. The searing pain is gone, replaced by a faint, residual tenderness. Panic, cold and sharp, begins to prickle at the edges of her awareness. Where is she? Who brought her here? A chair scrapes against the wood floor. She turns her head. He's sitting there. The man from the floor. The man who was a wolf. He's dressed now, in simple dark trousers and a soft-looking gray shirt. He looks exhausted. There are dark circles under his eyes, and his face is tight, with a pain that seems more than physical. His side is bandaged, a thick white patch visible beneath his shirt. He is even more imposing as a man. The sheer breadth of his shoulders, the quiet, contained power in the way he holds himself, it fills the room, and his eyes, they are the same. The same intense, amber gaze that watched her across her fireplace for days. She flinches back against the pillows, her heart trying to hammer its way out of her chest. The memories rush back: the gunshot, the explosion, the impossible, horrifying transformation. "It's all right," he says. His voice is a low, deep rumble, the same timbre as the comforting sound he'd made as a wolf, but now formed into words. "You're safe here." Safe? She stares at him, speechless. Nothing about this is safe. He seems to understand her silent terror. A look of profound guilt crosses his features. He runs a hand through his thick black hair. "My name is Kale," he says, his voice strained. There is no easy way to explain any of this." He pauses, gathering his thoughts. Alara just watches him, her mind a whirlwind of disbelief and fear. "I am not entirely human," he begins, the admission costing him. "My people, we are shifters. We can take the form of the wolf. I am the alpha of the Blackwood Pack." Shifters. Alpha. Pack. The words sound like something from a fantasy novel, not something to be spoken with such heavy sincerity in a sunlit room. "The pup," he continues, his gaze dropping to his hands. "His name is Leo. He's my nephew. His parents, they were killed by hunters a week ago. The same hunters who set the trap that injured me." The metallic gash. The illegal trap. It clicks into place with a sickening lurch. "I was trying to get him to safety. I was weakened by the silver in the trap. It poisons us. I was dying. I followed a scent, a feeling, a pull I couldn't explain. It led me to your door." He finally lifts his head, and his eyes lock with hers. The intensity in them is staggering. It feels like he's looking directly into her soul. "It led me to you." He takes a deep, ragged breath. "Alara, the reason I was drawn to you, the reason I felt your presence from miles away, is because you are my Angara." He says the word like it's sacred. And Kara. It's foreign, yet it resonates somewhere deep inside her, a plucked string she didn't know she possessed. It means soul's heart, fated mate, destiny. There are a dozen translations, and none of them are adequate. He looks pained, desperate for her to understand. It is a bond that connects two souls across any distance. It's a bond I have felt my entire life, a vague sense of a missing part of myself. And when I was hurt, when I was at my most desperate, it became a lifeline, a beacon. It called me to you. Her head is spinning. Fated mate? This is insane. It's a delusion brought on by head trauma. It has to be. The transformation, she whispers, the words catching in her throat, should not have been possible in my condition, he finishes for her, a grim set to his jaw. A shifter can't change form when they are that close to death, especially from silver poisoning. But when your blood, when it mixed with mine, it acted as an anchor. Your life force, your sacrifice. It stabilized the bond between us and forced the change. It saved my life. He gestures to her arm. And my healing, our bond, it rushed to heal you in return. The bullet only grazed you, but the magic of the bond healed the tissue almost instantly. Her hidden power. It wasn't a power at all. It was just her empathy, her loneliness, her quiet strength, all the things she thought were mundane parts of her broken self. To him, they were a beacon. She stares at him, at this impossible man with his impossible story. He's laid the truth out before her, a raw, unbelievable thing. All the pieces fall into place: the intelligent eyes, the unnatural healing, the protective instinct, the bone-deep connection she felt when she touched him. It all makes a terrifying, perfect sense. He is her shadow, her silent confessor, the creature who listened to her darkest secrets and didn't flinch. And he is a man who claims she is his destiny. The weight of it is crushing. It's too much, too fast. She does the only thing she can. She pulls the blanket up to her chin, turns her face away from him, and squeezes her eyes shut, wishing she could wake up from this waking dream. The world outside her has been remade, and she doesn't know how to live in it. Shock gives way to a dull, throbbing numbness. Alara exists in a state of suspended reality. She eats the food that is brought to her, simple broths and breads. She sleeps for long, dreamless hours. She listens to the quiet hum of life in this place, the distant sound of voices, the chop of an axe, the laughter of a child. Hale gives her space. He checks on her, his presence a heavy weight in the doorway. He asks if she needs anything, his voice quiet, laced with a guilt that is so thick she can almost taste it. She usually just shakes her head, unable to form words. He sees her fear, her disbelief, and he misinterprets it as rejection. On the third day, he comes into the room and stands by the window, his back to her. His broad shoulders are slumped, the posture of a king who has lost his kingdom. "What Mark did to you was unforgivable," he says, his voice tight. "And I brought him back to your door. I brought that violence back into your life. I exposed you to my world, to dangers you should never have had to face." He turns, and the pain in his eyes is a physical blow. This bond, the Ankara, it is not a cage. You are not bound to me, or to this life. You are free. I will see to it that you are taken anywhere you want to go. I will ensure you have money, a new home, that you are safe and protected for the rest of your life. You deserve a normal life. Peace. You don't deserve this. He is pushing her away. He is trying to be noble, to be honorable. He is trying to give her a choice he thinks she wants. He is trying to cut her loose for her own good. And the old Alara, the broken, fearful Alara from a week ago, would have seized the opportunity. She would have run as far and as fast as she could from this impossible, terrifying reality. But she is not the old Alara. Something inside her, something forged in the fire of defiance on her porch and solidified in the shared trauma on her floor, rebels. A spark of anger, clear and bright, cuts through her numb confusion. "You don't get to do that," she says, her voice low but steady. She sits up, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. Her bare feet press against the cool wood of the floor. It feels solid, grounding. He looks startled by her tone. "You don't get to decide what I deserve," she continues, standing up. She's a little unsteady, but she holds his gaze. "You don't get to be noble and send me away to some normal life that was never normal to begin with. My life before this was hiding. It was a half-life of fear and loneliness and remembering to lock the door 3 times. She takes a step toward him. Her limp is still there, a slight familiar catch in her gait. But for the first time, it doesn't feel like a weakness. It feels like a part of her story. "For 5 days, you lay on my floor. You didn't speak. You didn't judge. You just listened. I told you things I have never told another living soul. I told a wolf things I was too afraid to tell a person. She's closer now, close enough to see the flicker of astonishment in his amber eyes. I was never afraid of you, she says, her voice softening. Not the wolf, not the man. I'm afraid of all of this, of what it means. But for the first time since Mark left me for dead in a ditch, I haven't felt alone. For the first time, I feel, she struggles for the word, seen. She stops, standing directly in front of him. She has to crane her neck to look up at him. So don't you dare try to push me away for my own good. Don't you dare make my choices for me. You are not him. You are not Mark. Her chest is heaving, the speech having taken all of her newfound strength. She has laid her heart bare, just as he did. The silence that follows is taut, humming with unspoken emotions. The tension is broken by a small sound from the doorway. A little boy, no older than 3, with a mop of unruly black hair and familiar, bright golden amber eyes, stands there. He's holding a slightly misshapen wooden bird. It's Leo, the pup, in his human form. He toddles into the room, seemingly oblivious to the charged atmosphere. He walks right up to them, to the space between Kale and Alara. He looks from one to the other. Then, with the simple, innocent logic of a child, he reaches out. He places one small, chubby hand on Alara's knee, and the other on Kale's. A bridge, a link. The simple, trusting touch is the final crack in Kale's formidable composure. A choked sound escapes his throat. He looks down at Alara, his carefully constructed walls crumbling into dust. The guilt, the nobility, the fear, it all melts away, replaced by a raw, naked vulnerability that mirrors her own. I have been watching over your land for months, he whispers, his voice thick with emotion. I was drawn here. I would catch your scent on the wind, sadness and loneliness and a strength that baffled me. I didn't understand what it was. I thought I was losing my mind. He reaches out, his large, warm hand hovering for a second before gently cupping her jaw. His thumb strokes her cheek. Lying on your floor, hearing your voice. It was the first time in a decade I didn't feel the weight of being the alpha. The first time I wasn't alone. His gaze is devastating. It holds a universe of longing. I think I started falling in love with you before I ever saw your face. I think my soul has been loving you for 1,000 years. The confession hangs in the air between them, more real and more solid than the walls of the room. It sinks into her, a warmth that chases away the last of the phantom chill from her bones. She leans into his touch, her eyes fluttering shut. Kale, she breathes. He lowers his head, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She doesn't. She rises on her toes, meeting him halfway. Their first kiss is not a spark. It's a confluence. It's the meeting of 2 rivers that have been flowing towards each other their entire lives. It is salt and sorrow, loneliness and longing, fear and ferocious hope all mingled together. It's the quiet explosion of finally being home. It is the sealing of a bond, the claiming of a destiny she never knew she had. In his arms, Alara is not the broken thing from the ravine. She is whole. Here spring arrives in the mountains like a shy guest, then bursts forth in a riot of green. The snow recedes, revealing damp, loamy earth that smells of new life. Wildflowers paint the meadows in strokes of purple and gold. 6 months have passed. Alara's life has been completely remade. Her small, isolated cabin, which Kale and his pack repaired, now feels like a distant memory, a cocoon she has shed. She now lives with Kale in the heart of the pack's settlementa, hidden, thriving village of log homes and communal halls that nestle so perfectly into the landscape they are nearly invisible. Today, there is a ceremony. Not a formal wedding in the human sense, but something deeper, more significant. The entire pack, nearly 100 shifters, is gathered in a sun-dappled clearing. Alara stands beside Kale, her hand in his. She wears a simple green dress, the color of new leaves. Her limp is still there, a permanent part of her, but she no longer tries to hide it. It is the scar that tells the story of her journey here. Kale, in his role as Alpha, speaks to his people. His voice is strong, resonant, carrying across the clearing. He tells them the story of how he was lost and found. He doesn't present Alara as a prize or a possession. He presents her as a gift. She is not just my Ankara, he says, his amber eyes finding hers, full of a love that still takes her breath away. She is our Luna. She, a human, with a heart more fierce and loyal than any wolf's, chose compassion over fear. She saved your Alpha. She saved our future. Her heart is now the heart of this pack. A murmur of assent ripples through the crowd. They do not see her as an outsider. They see her as the woman whose quiet strength healed their leader. They see the woman who plays with their children, who listens to the elders' stories, who is learning to bake bread in the communal kitchen. They see her as one of them. As she looks out at their face smiling, acceptant Jalara feels a sense of belonging, so profound it makes her ache. This is family, a found family, cobbled together by fate and circumstance and the insane, beautiful magic of this place. A week later, a trip into town is unavoidable. They need supplies that the pack can't grow or make. The 40-minute drive in Kale's truck feels strange. A journey back to a world she no longer belongs to. In the town is a jarring cacophony of sounds and smells after the peace of the woods. As they leave the hardware store, Alara freezes. Across the street, coming out of a coffee shop, is Mark. He looks diminished, smaller. His expensive coat is rumpled. He's arguing with a sharp-faced woman clinging to his arm, his expression harried and miserable. He doesn't look like the confident, cruel man from her memories. He just looks pathetic. Then, he sees her. His eyes widen. His argument with the woman dies on his lips. He stares. He sees Alara, standing tall and straight. He sees the massive, protective man whose arm is wrapped possessively around her waist. He sees the easy, genuine smile that plays on her lips as she turns to say something to Kale. He sees her laugh, a full, uninhibited sound of pure joy. He sees a woman who is not just surviving, but thriving. A woman radiating a confidence and a light that he did everything in his power to extinguish. There is no confrontation. No bitter words are exchanged. There doesn't need to be. Her happiness is her victory. Her peace is her revenge. He is left on a dusty sidewalk to witness the beautiful life she built from the ashes of the one he tried to destroy. Kale feels her tense. He follows her gaze, his expression hardening. "Do you want to leave?" he murmurs, his hand tightening on her waist. Alara takes a deep breath, then lets it out slowly. She turns her back on her past. "No," she says, a genuine smile returning to her face as she looks up at him. "I'm right where I'm supposed to be." That evening, she sits on the wide porch of their home, a mug of warm tea in her hands. The sun is setting, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and pink. Kale sits beside her, his solid presence, a constant, comforting anchor. Leo, in his sleek pup form, is asleep at their feet, his paws twitching as he dreams of chasing squirrels. She is not just a mate. She is an aunt to a mischievous little boy who is slowly healing from his own trauma. She is a friend to the other women of the pack. She is the Luna, a title she is slowly, humbly growing into. She looks out at the vast, wild forest that was once her refuge from the world, and then her prison. Now, it is simply her home. She came here to hide, a victim running from the cruelty of men and the indifference of the world. She thought her softness, her empathy, the very core of her being, was a fundamental flaw, a weakness that had nearly gotten her killed. But it wasn't. That softness was a strength that recognized another's pain. That empathy was a power that built a bridge between two worlds. That perceived weakness was the key that unlocked a destiny she could never have imagined. It had saved a king, healed a pack, and pieced together her own fractured soul. Hale takes her hand, his fingers lacing through hers. The contact is as natural as breathing. She leans her head on his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of pine and wolf and him. The ache in her leg is just a dull, distant thrum, a quiet reminder of the woman she used to be. She is no longer cold. She is finally, incandescently, warm.